The final section for section 2 deals with this whole idea of taking all these different theories that we've been looking at and trying to synthesize them together, put them together. Okay? Now, where does this all come from? Okay, well, essentially, I mean, you can draw this idea of synthesis from a variety of different areas, but according to Karl Marx, you had the whole notion of, let me pull up my laser pointer here, you had thesis, right, which is simply an idea. And the whole thing with an idea is it's not necessarily good or bad, but you need to have a genesis, a beginning point, an antecedent that you can test, retest, extrapolate from, confirm, disprove, those types of things. Now it can be an empirically proven or disproven thesis. It can be one that's theoretically. It doesn't necessarily matter. But the opposite of a thesis, as we know, just using common sense, is the antithesis or the antithesis. However you want to look at it. I've heard it pronounced both ways. All right? And so that's the opposite, right? Anti whatever it is that you're talking about over here. What we want to focus on, however, is this whole idea of synthesis, or the bringing together of ideas. And that's what theory integration really is about. It's about synthesis. I've talked ad nauseum about this notion of the buffet, right? Where if I want a good meal, and I like a good buffet, I do, you order from a menu, and that's a good thing. But when you got a chance to see all that stuff, and you're able to pick and choose based upon the question you want to answer. And for me, when I'm standing in front of a buffet, the question I want to answer is, what tastes good or sounds good right now? Okay? And so I go through and I build the perfect plate or plates to satisfy that particular question. All right? Well, oddly enough, you're using the same process when you're trying to answer a question. First, you come up with whatever question it is that you want to address and answer. Oftentimes in an organizational environment, this is going to be given to you. Perhaps your superiors say, hey, I would like you to find out more information on whatever. And so that's the beginning part. And so you have the idea. Now, how you go about answering that, this is usually the best thing to do, is you pull ideas from the best possible group of ideas available. And sometimes it's social science, sometimes it's not. It just kind of depends on what it is that you're trying to do. And so what kind of the goal of everything here for us is we want to explain and answer and describe a particular issue or problem. So what we do is we fall back on this whole notion of synthesis in order to do that, because that's going to provide the most robust answer possible. Now, the reading that was required asks you, actually, it forces you to read about some ideas, maybe some things that you never really thought about, which is okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And then the assignment, the particular blog assignment, asks you to try and pick up off of their article. Now, what you'll notice is there are two articles there. You have the full-length version of the paper, and you have the white paper version of the paper. The full-length is what was published fully. The white paper is basically a summary, and the summary is something that is provided to practitioners, people in the business world that don't have a lot of time to sit down and read 30, 40 pages of a journal article. And so you give kind of the highlights, the basic points, and some of the conclusions of how they can apply whatever it is that you're talking about in their day-to-day life. And so that's what I want you to do, is I want you to read one of the versions of the paper. I truly don't care which one. But read one of the versions of the paper, and whether you're into Major League Baseball or not, it has no bearing. Just like whether you're a sports fan has no bearing on this class. You can still go through the process. And what I'd like you to do is to think about all the different levels of theories that are spoken about within that particular article. And then you have the different social problems that are identified within that particular article. And the whole point there is, in order to solve or address the social problems in Major League Baseball, which could be in any league or could be in any aspect of social life, it requires you to think on different analytical levels, think about different questions, and think about different possible answers. And then what I'd like you to do in terms of answering the blog and responding to that particular assignment is to think about how you could start to combine, how you can work with this idea of synthesis. One of the, here's kind of an example that's sort of loosely associated with the world of sport and exercise and physical activity settings, that type of thing, is I also teach sports psychology. And within exercise psychology, there are these models that were put together, some going back as far as the 1940s and 1950s, in terms of understanding how and why people are successful or unsuccessful in changing their health-related behaviors, whether it's nutrition, whether it's their perceptions of public health issues and diseases, or whether it's their personal views on physical activity and exercise. Okay. Well, one of these health behavior change models is called social norms theory, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's a model that talks about how and why people are successful, and it's predicated upon social norms and their understanding within their group of these social norms. Very, very commonsensical. Well, that has been combined with different forms of marketing, PR, and communication studies and models to look at and understand what types of physical activity campaigns are successful and which types of physical activity campaigns are not successful. So, for example, in the NFL, they have this Play 60 campaign, which has actually now been expanded to include not just physical activity of needing kids to play 60 minutes outside, running around, something physical like that every day, but it's also including nutrition and dietary restrictions and health and so on and so forth. But all right, when you look at something like the NFL Play 60 campaign, what it does is you can see how using marketing theories, using communication or public relations models, in addition to these exercise psychology or public health behavior change models, you can see how all those three things work together, can be synthesized together to understand which campaigns impact people and actually have a quantifiable, actionable impact on individuals with regards to understanding physical activity. That's the goal of everything here. So think about this second section, which focuses on constructionist explanations for deviant and violent behavior within the realm of sport, recreation, and physical activity. We've talked about a lot. We've talked about some simple ones and some that are a little bit more complicated. And each theory was kind of designed to address a particular aspect or facet of deviant behavior. Think about how you can combine those to answer larger questions. That's what your blog assignment, that's what that reading are all about. So if you have any questions on those things, feel free to get in touch with me. And, like I said, invest. Try to read the article. It can be complicated at times, I understand, but take a breath, take a moment, read those articles. Think about this idea of synthesis. Think about what you know about the theories that we've talked about up to this point, and see how you can really start to apply these things moving forward.